"Sir, you need to come in right now. Don't make any noise." My daughter's coworker from the hospital grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the supply closet. "What are you doing, Thomas?" I whispered angrily, trying to pull away. But he held on tight, and the scared look in his eyes made my blood turn cold. "Mr. Harrison, please trust me. You need to see this before the wedding starts." We had 20 minutes. That's all we had before my daughter Catherine walked down the path to marry Derek Chen. She had been dating him for 2 years. I had checked him out carefully. I looked up his background and even paid a private detective to check his story. Everything came back good. He was a children's doctor, respected at work, no crime record, good money, perfect on paper. So why was Thomas, a nurse from Catherine's emergency room, pushing me into a storage closet and telling me to be quiet? Through the crack in the door, I watched Thomas stand near the chapel's side entrance. My heart beat hard against my chest. At 63 years old, I thought I'd seen everything. I lost my wife Margaret to cancer 8 years ago. I raised Catherine by myself through medical school. I helped her through her first heartbreak. I celebrated when she became an emergency room doctor. I supported every dream she ever had. And now this. "Mr. Harrison?" Thomas's voice was barely a whisper through the gap. "In 30 seconds, a woman is going to come through that door. I need you to watch carefully and stay completely silent." I wanted to argue and ask for answers, but something in Thomas's voice kept me frozen in place. The door opened. A young woman came in, maybe early 30s, with a baby carrier in one hand and a small child holding her other hand. She looked tired and worn down. Her clothes were wrinkled like she'd been traveling for hours. The little boy couldn't have been more than 3 years old, and he had Derek's eyes. That special green-gold color that Catherine had talked about 100 times, saying they reminded her of her mother's. My stomach dropped. The woman walked up to Father Michael, who was looking over notes for the wedding. "Excuse me, Father. I'm looking for Derek Chen. I was told he'd be here." Father Michael looked confused. "I'm sorry, miss, but there's a wedding about to start. Are you a guest?" "I'm his wife," her voice cracked. "I'm Melissa Chen, and these are our children." The baby started crying. The sound rang through my head like a gunshot. I must have made some noise because Thomas quickly pressed his hand against the door, keeping it from opening more. "Not yet," he breathed. "Listen." Father Michael had gone pale. "I think there's been a mistake. Derek Chen is about to marry Catherine Harrison in less than 15 minutes. "There's no mistake." Melissa's voice grew stronger, mixed with worry and anger. "We've been married for 6 years. I have the marriage papers. We live in Ottawa. Derek told me he was at a doctor's meeting in Vancouver this week. I only found out about this because his phone bill came to our house yesterday and there were lots of calls to a Toronto number. When I called it, a woman answered saying she was his wedding planner." My knees went weak. I grabbed the shelf behind me, medical supplies rattling. Ottawa. He'd told Catherine he was from Calgary. He said he'd moved to Toronto for the job at St. Michael's Hospital 3 years ago. He said his family was far away, that they'd had a fight and he didn't want to talk about them. Catherine, with her big heart, had respected that, never pushed. How could I have been so blind? "I need to see him," Melissa was saying. "I need to stop this before—" "Before what?" Derek's voice cut through the chapel, smooth as silk and cold as winter. I'd heard that tone before, but only in quick moments. Catherine always said I was imagining things when I said Derek's charm seemed to turn off when he thought no one was watching. I looked through the crack. Derek stood in the doorway from the groom's preparation room, still in his dress shirt and pants, jacket not on yet. He looked between Melissa and Father Michael, and for just a second I saw his mask slip. Anger. Pure, planned anger. Then it was gone, replaced by confusion. "Melissa, what are you doing here?" "Father Michael, I can explain. This is—" "Don't you dare!" Melissa's voice shook. "Don't you dare lie to them the way you've been lying to me, to us. She pointed to the children. Your son asked where Daddy was every single night this week. I told him you were helping sick children, and you were here planning to marry someone else when you're already married. Marrying someone when you're already married? The words hung in the air like poison gas. Thomas caught my eye through the gap. He mouthed, "Wait." Every feeling inside me screamed to burst through that door, to protect my daughter, to drag Derek out by his collar and show everyone who he really was. But I stayed frozen, watching what happened next. Derek's face hardened. "Melissa, you're upset. Let's talk about this privately." "I'm done talking privately. You've been taking money out of our shared bank account for months. $20,000, Derek. $20,000. That was supposed to be for Ethan's surgery." She was crying now, the baby crying in her arms. "He needed that surgery. He's been on a waiting list for 8 months, and you stole from your own son to pay for your second wedding." The little boy, Ethan, started crying too. "Daddy? Is that Daddy?" I couldn't breathe, couldn't understand what I was hearing. Father Michael stepped forward, his face serious. "Mr. Chen, is this true? Are you married right now?" Derek's jaw clenched. For a moment, I thought he might actually tell the truth. Instead, he turned to Melissa with a look that made my skin crawl. "You're making a scene. This is obviously some kind of breakdown. The stress of taking care of Ethan has clearly... Don't you dare blame this on me." Melissa searched in her bag, pulled out a folder and pushed it at Father Michael. "Marriage papers, birth papers, bank statements showing his money transfers, phone records, it's all there." Thomas opened the closet door slightly. "Now," he whispered, before he talks his way out of this. But I couldn't move. My daughter was 50 feet away in the bride's preparation room, probably fixing her veil, thinking about the life she was about to start. Margaret's veil, the one she'd saved for Catherine since our wedding 35 years ago. Catherine had cried when I gave it to her last night. She said she felt her mother's presence. What was I supposed to do? Run in there and destroy her happiness? Watch her heart break in her wedding dress? "Mr. Harrison?" Thomas's voice was urgent. "I know this is impossible, but if you don't act right now, Catherine walks down that path to a man who's already married, a man who stole from his own child. You're the only one who can stop this." He was right. God help me, he was right. I pushed the door open. The sound made everyone turn. Derek's eyes got wide when he saw me, and in that moment I knew Thomas had been right about everything. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't Melissa having some kind of problem. Derek was guilty, and he knew I just heard everything. "Mr. Harrison?" Derek's voice was too calm, too controlled. "I can explain." "Explain what?" My voice didn't sound like my own. "Explain that you're married, that you have 2 children, that you stole from your son to pay for this wedding?" Father Michael looked between us, the folder still in his hands. "Mr. Harrison, you knew about this?" "I just found out." I walked toward Melissa, my legs somehow carrying me forward even though they felt like they'd give out any second. "Ma'am, I'm Catherine's father. I'm so sorry. I had no idea." She looked at me with such pain in her eyes. "He told you he was single? He told us his family didn't talk to him, that he grew up in Calgary, that he moved to Toronto for work." I turned to Derek, and all the careful politeness I'd kept for 2 years disappeared. "You looked me in the eye at Christmas dinner and told me about your childhood, your supposedly dead parents, your sister who supposedly died in a car crash. Was any of it true?" Derek's mask slipped more. "Catherine doesn't need to know about this. We can work this out between us." "Work this out?" Melissa's laugh was bitter. "How do you work out being married to 2 people, Derek? How do you work out leaving your children?" The baby's cries grew louder. Ethan pulled on his mother's coat. "Mommy, I'm scared." That broke something in me. This little boy, Derek's son, was terrified, and my daughter was about to marry the man who'd caused that fear. "Father Michael," I said quietly, "I need you to delay the wedding." "Mr. Harrison, you can't!" Derek started. I can and I will. I looked into his eyes, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. No charm, no careful lies, just a man who'd been caught. You're not marrying my daughter. Not today, not ever. She loves me. Derek's voice took on an edge of worry. She'll forgive this. We can... You don't know my daughter at all if you think she'd forgive being married to two people and leaving children. I turned to Father Michael. Please, I need 10 minutes with Catherine before we do anything else. Father Michael nodded slowly, still processing everything. Of course. But, Mr. Harrison, we'll need to contact the police if what this woman is saying is true. It's all true. Thomas stepped forward, pulling out his phone. And I have more proof. Derek's been having secret relationships with one of the surgery residents. Multiple secret relationships, actually. I started investigating 3 months ago when I heard him on a phone call that didn't make sense. That's when I found Melissa's information and reached out to her. Derek's face went white. You had no right. I had every right. Thomas's voice was firm. Catherine is my coworker and my friend. When I thought something was wrong, I investigated, and I found enough to make me sick. I looked at Thomas with new understanding. How long have you known? 2 months. I wanted to be completely certain before I said anything. I hired a private detective and checked everything. I only contacted Melissa last week to confirm details. He glanced at Derek with disgust. This man has been living 2 separate lives, Mr. Harrison. Melissa wasn't the only thing he was hiding. Melissa sat down in one of the pews, still holding her crying baby. I thought I was going crazy. The late nights, the times he couldn't explain where he was, the money disappearing. He convinced me I was paranoid, that I was seeing things that weren't there. That's what manipulators do, Father Michael said gently. They make you doubt your own reality. I knew I needed to get to Catherine, but first I had to know. Thomas, why didn't you come to me sooner? I tried. Remember 2 weeks ago when I asked to speak with you privately at the hospital? Derek stopped me. He told me you were busy, that he'd pass along any message. I realized then that he knew I was suspicious, so I had to be more careful. Thomas's face was serious. I'm sorry I had to do it this way, sir, but I couldn't let Catherine marry him without knowing the truth. The chapel door burst open. Catherine stood there in her wedding dress, her face showing confusion and fear. Dad, what's going on? Someone said there was a delay, and Derek hasn't come back to... She stopped, seeing all of us, seeing Melissa and the children. What's happening? My heart broke. Derek moved toward her. Catherine, sweetheart, there's been a misunderstanding. Don't. I stepped between them, facing my daughter. Catherine, I need you to come with me right now. She looked past me at Derek, at Melissa, at the baby. Her medical training kicked in. I could see it. She was checking, processing, trying to understand. Dad, who is that woman? Why does she have children here? Catherine, Derek tried again. I said don't. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. You don't get to speak to her. Not now, not ever again. Catherine's eyes got wide. In 32 years, she'd never heard me use that tone with anyone. Dad, you're scaring me. I know, sweetheart, and I'm sorry, but I need you to trust me right now. Can you do that? She looked at my face, and I saw the moment she decided. Whatever else happened, whatever doubts she had about Derek, she trusted me. Okay. I guided her to a small side room away from everyone. Behind us, I heard Father Michael say something to Derek about staying there, and Melissa trying to calm her crying children. Catherine sat down, her dress spreading around her like clouds. She'd never looked more beautiful or more vulnerable. Dad, what's going on? I knelt in front of her, taking her hands. They were ice cold. I need to tell you something, and it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt worse than anything I've ever had to tell you. Is someone dead? Her voice cracked. Is it Aunt Linda? Uncle James? No one's dead. I squeezed her hands. Catherine, that woman out there is Derek's wife. Those children are his. He's been married for 6 years, living in Ottawa, and he's been lying to you about everything. The color left her face. That's not possible. I would have known. He would have. Thomas discovered it 2 months ago. He hired an investigator. He has proof. Marriage papers, birth papers, everything. I watched my daughter's world fall apart in real time. Derek has been living two separate lives. He told his wife he was at a doctor's meeting in Vancouver. He told you his family didn't talk to him. None of it was true. Catherine pulled her hands away from mine, pressing them to her mouth. No, that's not. Dad, you did a background check. You hired an investigator. Everything came back good. He used his information from Toronto, his address here. He kept his other life completely separate. I felt like I was watching her drown and couldn't reach her. Catherine, I'm so sorry. If I'd known... How? The word came out broken. How did he hide an entire family? He's a surgeon. He had the schedule, flexibility, the money to have two
households, and apparently enough charm to convince everyone in both lives that he could be trusted. I stood up, my knees protesting. Thomas said there were other secret relationships too, multiple residents at the hospital. She flinched like I'd hit her. Did you know before today? No. Thomas tried to tell me 2 weeks ago, but Derek stopped him. Thomas arranged for Militia to come here today because he knew Derek wouldn't be able to talk his way out if his wife showed up with their children. I paused. He also knew I needed to see it for myself to believe it. Catherine stood up quickly, stumbling in her heels. I caught her arm, steadying her. I need to see him. I need to hear him admit it. Are you sure? I'm not walking away from this without looking him in the eye. Her voice was stronger now, anger starting to burn through the shock. He doesn't get to hide behind you or Thomas or anyone else. If he destroyed my life, he is going to face me while I process it. That was my daughter. Even broken, she was brave. We walked back to the chapel together. Derek was sitting in a pew now, head in his hands. Melissa had moved to the opposite side of the room, the baby finally quiet. Ethan was playing with a small toy car, making soft engine noises, not knowing about the chaos around him. Derek looked up when he heard our footsteps. Relief came over his face. Catherine, thank God. Listen, this is all a huge misunderstanding. Are you married? Her voice cut through his words like a knife. He opened his mouth, closed it. For once, his smooth talking failed him. Are you married? Catherine's hands were shaking, but her voice stayed level. It's complicated, Derek finally said. It's a yes or no question, Derek. Yes. The word fell like a stone. But Catherine, you have to understand. Are those your children? Another pause. Yes. Catherine's breath caught, but she didn't break. How long have you been married? 6 years. But how long have you been planning to marry 2 people? Derek stood up. That's not fair. I love you. What Melissa and I have, it's not... Stop talking. Catherine held up her hand. Just stop. Every word out of your mouth is a lie. It's always been a lie. Our entire relationship was a lie. No! Derek moved toward her, and I stepped between them again. He glared at me. Mr. Harrison, this is between Catherine and me. You don't get to speak to her, I repeated. You don't get to touch her. You don't get anything from her ever again. Thomas appeared at my side, phone in hand. The police are on their way. Being married to 2 people is a crime in Canada. So is stealing money, since Derek's been moving money between accounts to hide his double life. Derek's face went from begging to panicked. You called the police? Catherine, don't let them do this. We can work this out. I'll divorce... Melissa, we can start over. Start over? Melissa's voice rang out from across the chapel. You'll divorce me. With what money, Derek? You cleaned out our bank accounts. Ethan needs surgery. Your son needs surgery, and you stole from him to pay for flowers and champagne for your second wedding. Catherine turned to look at Melissa properly for the first time. I watched my daughter's face, saw her medical training kick in, even through her pain. What surgery? Melissa's face softened slightly. Ethan has a heart problem. He's been on a waiting list for a special procedure. It's not immediately life-threatening, but the longer we wait, the more damage happens. The surgery costs $30,000. Derek was supposed to cover it through his medical insurance and our savings. Her voice cracked. Instead, he took $20,000 from our account and disappeared.
Catherine looked at the little boy playing with his toy car, at the baby in Melissa's arms, then back at Derek. You took money from your child's medical fund to pay for our wedding? Catherine, you're not seeing this clearly. Answer the question. Her voice dropped to a whisper, which was somehow more scary than if she'd yelled. Did you steal from your son's medical fund to pay for our wedding? Derek's silence was answer enough. Catherine walked past all of us, past Derek, straight to where Melissa sat. She knelt down in front of Ethan. Hi there. What's your name? The little boy looked up, his green gold eyes so heartbreakingly like Derek's. Ethan. That's a great name. I'm Catherine. I'm a doctor. She smiled gently. Can I listen to your heart? Ethan nodded shyly. Catherine pressed her ear to his small chest, listening carefully. After a moment, she sat back. You're very brave, Ethan. Your heart is working hard, isn't it? He nodded again. Catherine stood and faced Melissa. I'm a trauma surgeon at St. Michael's. I have connections with the Children's Heart Doctor Department. May I see his medical files? Melissa blinked in confusion. Yes, I have copies on my phone, but why? Because I'm going to make sure Ethan gets his surgery. Catherine's voice was firm. I'm also going to make sure Derek's money is frozen so he can't hide any more money. And I'm going to testify at his criminal trial if necessary. She looked at Derek with a look I'd never seen on her face before. Pure, cold anger. You don't get to hurt children. You don't get to hurt your own son. And you definitely don't get to walk away from this. Catherine, please. Derek took a step toward her. No. She held up her hand. I loved you. I thought I was going to spend my life with you. I defended you to my dad when he said he had concerns. I ignored every warning sign because I believed in you. Her voice broke slightly, but she pushed through. But you're a monster, and I will spend every resource I have making sure you face consequences for what you've done. The police arrived then, 2 officers looking confused about why they'd been called to a church. Father Michael explained quickly, showing them Melissa's documents. Thomas added his proof. Derek tried to argue, to explain, to charm his way out one more time. It didn't work. They arrested him right there in the chapel, in his wedding clothes, read him his rights while Ethan watched, not understanding why the man who looked like Daddy was being taken away. They charged him with being married to 2 people, stealing money, and a handful of other crimes that would probably grow as the investigation continued. Catherine watched it all with dry eyes. Only when they'd taken Derek away, when it was just us and Melissa and the children and Father Michael and Thomas, did she finally break. She sank into a pew, still in her wedding dress, and started to cry. I sat beside her, pulling her close like I'd done when she was little and had nightmares. I've got you, sweetheart. I've got you. How did I not see it? She sobbed. I'm a doctor. I'm trained to notice things. How did I miss all the signs? Because he's a professional liar, Thomas said quietly. This wasn't your fault, Catherine. He fooled everyone. Background checks, investigators, all of us. Except you. Catherine looked at him through her tears. You figured it out. I got lucky. Heard the wrong conversation at the right time. Thomas sat down on her other side. I'm sorry I had to do it this way. I wanted to tell you sooner, but Derek would have made up some story, and I probably would have believed him. Catherine wiped her eyes. You saved me from marrying a criminal, from becoming part of a crime without knowing it, she looked at Melissa, from unknowingly destroying your family even more than he already has. Melissa had been quiet through all of this, just holding her children. Now she spoke softly. You didn't know. I could see that when you looked at him. You really loved him. I did. Catherine's voice was small. But he didn't love me. He couldn't have. You don't do this to someone you love. No, Melissa agreed. You don't. Father Michael cleared his throat gently. Catherine, what would you like me to do about the guests? They're starting to ask questions. My daughter took a shaky breath, straightening her shoulders. I'll tell them. I'm not going to hide. Derek's the one who should be ashamed, not me. You don't have to do this right now, I said. We can make an announcement, reschedule. No, Dad. I need to face this. I need to tell everyone the truth before Derek's version spreads. She stood up, her wedding dress rustling. I'm going to walk out there and explain that the groom was arrested for being married to two people and stealing money. That the wedding is canceled. And then I'm going to go home, burn this dress, and figure out how to put my life back together. She was so strong, so much stronger than I'd been at her age or at any age. Margaret would have been proud. I'll come with you, Thomas offered. We all will, I added. Catherine shook her head. No, this is my mess to clean up, but thank you. She looked at Melissa. I meant what I said. I'm going to help Ethan get his surgery, whatever it takes. You don't have to do that, Melissa said quietly. Yes, I do. None of this is his fault or yours. It's Derek's. But that doesn't mean a child should suffer because his father is a criminal. Catherine walked toward the chapel doors, then stopped. Dad? Yes, sweetheart? Thank you for believing, Thomas. For stopping me from walking down that path. I know it wasn't easy. Hardest thing I've ever done, I admitted. But I'd do it again in a heartbeat. You deserve someone who's honest, someone who's worthy of you. Derek never was. She smiled sadly. I know that now. Then she was gone, walking toward the main chapel to face 100 confused guests and tell them the truth. Thomas looked at me. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. That's my daughter, I said, pride thick in my voice. Melissa gathered her children. I should go. I need to file my own police report, and I need to get the kids somewhere safe. Derek's family doesn't know about Catherine, and when they find out... She stopped, shaking her head. Where are you staying? I asked. A motel near the airport. I flew in this morning. No. The word came out before I'd fully thought it through. You're not staying in a motel. My house has plenty of space. You and the children can stay there while this gets sorted out. Melissa stared at me. Mr. Harrison, I can't. You can and you will. Your children need stability and you need support. Besides, Catherine's going to want to coordinate Ethan's medical care, which means she'll need regular contact with you. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling my sister. She'll get the guest rooms ready and pick up some supplies for the kids. Why are you helping us? Melissa's eyes filled with tears. Your daughter's life just fell apart because of my husband. Your husband, I corrected gently, and you're not responsible for what he did. Neither are your children. What kind of man would I be if I let you struggle alone? Thomas nodded. Mr. Harrison's right. You're all victims here. You deserve support. Father Michael added, I'll connect you with some resources as well. Legal help, counseling, money assistance programs. You won't have to navigate this alone. Melissa broke down then, crying as hard as Catherine had. I awkwardly patted her shoulder while Ethan hugged her leg and the baby started fussing again. Thomas took the baby, surprisingly good at calming the infant, while Father Michael entertained Ethan with stories about the church bells. This wasn't how I'd expected this day to go. This morning, I'd woken up thinking I was going to walk my daughter down the path, give her away to a man I'd checked and approved, welcome him into our family. Instead, I'd watched that man get arrested, watched my daughter's heart break, and somehow ended up hosting his first wife and children in my home. Life was strange. But as I stood there in that chapel, surrounded by the wreckage of Derek's lies, I knew we'd done the right thing. Catherine would heal. Melissa would rebuild. The children would be protected. And Derek would face justice. Sometimes being a father meant protecting your child from monsters, even when those monsters wore expensive suits and had medical degrees and looked perfect on paper. Especially then. 3 months later, I sat in a courtroom watching Derek Chen receive a 5-year sentence for being married to 2 people, stealing money, and a handful of other charges that had come up during the investigation. Turned out Catherine and Melissa weren't his only victims. There were 2 other women who'd been in various stages of relationships with him, both believing they were his only partner. The judge was not sympathetic. Catherine sat on one side of me, calm in her professional clothes. She'd taken a leave of absence from the hospital after the wedding disaster. She spent some time in therapy, processing everything, and returned stronger than ever. Her coworkers had rallied around her. The hospital had launched an internal investigation into Derek's behavior, which led to his medical license being suspended while they looked into it further. Melissa sat on my other side, holding Ethan's hand. The little boy had gotten his surgery 6 weeks ago, thanks to Catherine pulling every string she could reach in the medical community. The procedure was a success. His heart was healing, growing stronger every day. Melissa had found a job at a local clinic, enrolled Ethan in preschool, and was slowly rebuilding her life. They were still staying at my house. What had started as a temporary arrangement had somehow become permanent. Melissa insisted on paying rent despite my protests. She cooked dinner 3 nights a week. Ethan called me Grandpa Robert, which made my heart swell every time. Catherine came over most evenings after her shifts, often staying to read bedtime stories to Ethan or help Melissa with the baby. We'd become an odd little family, bound together by trauma, but choosing to become something better. Thomas attended the sentencing too, sitting a few rows back. He'd become a regular part of our Sunday dinners, his quiet observation skills making him surprisingly good at spotting when someone needed extra support. He and Catherine had developed a close friendship. Nothing romantic. Catherine had sworn off dating for the foreseeable future, but a solid bond built on trust and mutual respect. When the judge announced the sentence, Derek's face crumpled. He'd said he was innocent throughout the trial. He claimed everything was a misunderstanding. He insisted he'd loved Catherine. The jury hadn't believed him, neither had the judge. As they led him away, he looked at Catherine one last time. I tensed, ready to step in if he tried anything. But he just said, "I'm sorry, I really did love you." Catherine's response was calm, measured. "No, you didn't. You don't know what love is. But I hope you learn someday, because the man you are now, you're going to die alone." Then she stood and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. That evening, we gathered at my house for dinner. Catherine had made her mother's roast chicken recipe. Melissa had baked bread. Thomas brought wine. Ethan showed me his latest drawing, a picture of all of us together, including the baby, with "My Family" written across the top in wobbly letters. I hung it on the refrigerator next to Catherine's medical school diploma and a photo of Margaret from our wedding day. "To new beginnings," Thomas raised his glass. "To family," Melissa added, her eyes bright with tears. "To truth," Catherine said firmly. "To trust," I finished. "And to always listening when your gut tells you something's wrong." We clinked glasses. Ethan copied us with his sippy cup, making us all laugh. Later, after Melissa had put the children to bed and Thomas had headed home and Catherine was helping me clean up the kitchen, she said, "Dad, I never thanked you properly." "For what?" "For trusting Thomas, for believing him even when all the evidence said Derek was good, for stopping me from making the biggest mistake of my life." She dried a plate, not looking at me. "I know it couldn't have been easy watching me hurt like that." "It was the hardest thing I've ever done," I admitted. "Watching you cry in that wedding dress nearly killed me. But the alternative, letting you marry him, letting you find out later when it would have been even worse, that would have been unforgivable. Mom would have been proud of you. You turned one of the worst days of your life into something meaningful. You saved Ethan. You helped Melissa. You refused to be a victim." Catherine put down the dish towel and hugged me. "I learned from the best." We stood like that for a long moment, father and daughter, survivors of different battles, but warriors nonetheless. "I've been thinking," Catherine said eventually, pulling back, "about starting a foundation for people who've been victims of relationship fraud. So many people end up financially destroyed, legally tangled, emotionally destroyed. If I could help even a few people avoid what happened to me and Melissa." "That's a wonderful idea." "Would you help?" "You have the business experience, the connections. Of course I'll help." I smiled at her. "What do you want to call it?" "The Caroline Foundation. After Mom." Catherine's eyes were bright. "She always said, trust, but verify. I didn't verify enough, but maybe we can help others learn from my mistakes." "Your mother would love that. And sweetheart, they weren't your mistakes. Derek was a professional con artist. You did everything right. He's just very good at being wrong." Thomas says the same thing. So does my therapist. She picked up another dish. Some days I believe it. Other days I wonder what signs I missed. But I'm working on it. That's all any of us can do. Work on it day by day. Upstairs, I could hear Melissa singing a lullaby to the baby. Ethan's footsteps pattered across the floor, probably getting out of bed for the third time. Normal evening sounds in a house that had been too quiet for too long. You know what the strangest part is? Catherine asked. I'm happier now than I was with Derek. Not happy about what happened, obviously, but my life feels more real now, more honest. Derek was always performing, always keeping up this careful image. I was performing too, trying to be the person he wanted. Now, I can just be myself. And yourself is pretty spectacular. She laughed. I'm a 32-year-old woman living with my dad again and helping to raise my ex-fiancé's children with his actual wife. My life is insane. Your life is full of love and honesty and people who actually care about each other. That's not insane. That's beautiful. When did you get so wise? Around the same time you started calling me Grandpa Robert without actually having grandchildren. Catherine snorted. Ethan considers you his grandpa. That counts. It does, I agreed softly. It really does. We finished the dishes in comfortable silence. Outside, the Toronto skyline glittered in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Derek Chen was beginning his sentence, facing consequences for the first time in his carefully constructed life. Other people he'd hurt were rebuilding, like we were. The wedding never happened, but something better did. Something real. And 3 months later, when Catherine stood up at her foundation's first fundraising event and told her story, the whole truth, holding nothing back, I watched a room full of people moved to tears by her honesty and courage. Melissa was there too, sharing her perspective, explaining how being alone and lied to had made her doubt her own reality until it was almost too late. By the end of the night, we'd raised $300,000 for the foundation. More importantly, we'd helped 24 people realize they weren't alone in their experiences, that relationship fraud was real, devastating, and not their fault. Thomas made a toast. To Catherine Harrison, who turned betrayal into purpose. To Melissa Chen, who found strength in survival. And to Robert Harrison, who proved that sometimes the hardest act of love is telling the truth, no matter how much it hurts. Standing there, surrounded by my daughter, by Melissa and her children, by Thomas and all the people whose lives had been touched by this strange, painful journey, I thought about Margaret, about how she'd always said that every experience, no matter how difficult, could teach us something if we were willing to learn. Derek Chen taught us about lies, yes, but he also taught us about resilience, about the strength of chosen family, about the power of truth even when it arrives at the worst possible moment. And if I had to do it all over again, stand in that closet, watch my daughter's dreams shatter, navigate the aftermath, I wouldn't change a thing. Because on the other side of that pain was something Derek could never give Catherine. Real love, real family, real honesty. And that's worth everything. The most important lesson I can share from this nightmare is simple. Trust your gut, but check everything. When someone shows you who they are through small inconsistencies, through warning signs you want to ignore, through moments when their mask slips, believe them. Don't make excuses. Don't rationalize. Pay attention. And if you're a parent watching your child fall for someone who doesn't feel right, speak up. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, they might be angry. But sometimes love means risking your relationship to protect your child from something far worse. The truth might hurt in the moment, but lies destroy everything they touch. Choose truth. Always choose truth.